She entered that relationship believing that true love could fill every emptiness inside her. When she met him, everything seemed perfect. He smiled with an intensity that made the world feel small, as if only the two of them existed. She felt that she had finally found someone who would complete her, someone who understood every nuance of her heart. The first few weeks were intoxicating. He spoke sweet words, made meticulous gestures, small details that seemed like signs that he genuinely cared, and she allowed herself to believe it. At first, he praised her for every little thing, the way she smiled, the way she moved, even the way she enjoyed music. But over time, the compliments began to mix with subtle criticisms. At first, it was observations about how she spoke or dressed. He would say certain behaviors were less attractive or that certain opinions were out of place. She laughed, believing it was just his way of caring, a way to guide her to be better. She began to change, slowly, without noticing. She cut off contact with some friends because he said, "They don't understand us," and friends like that only get in the way. She began changing her clothes, adjusting her style to what he considered attractive, speaking in ways he approved of. Everything felt natural, and at first she believed she was doing it out of love. But each silent change chipped away at a piece of herself. Gradually, her joy began to fade. She no longer laughed as easily. The little things that used to make her happy started to feel meaningless. She carried a constant weight in her chest, a silent tension she couldn't explain. He never admitted when he hurt her. On the contrary, he always reminded her that she was too sensitive or dramatic. She began to doubt herself, questioning every thought and feeling, always trying to please him, always trying to be enough. Arguments, which had been rare at first, began to become routine. Every mistake she made was magnified, every choice questioned. He would say things like, "If you really loved me, you'd do it differently," or "I don't know why you do things like that. You always complicate everything." She remembered every word, analyzed every gesture, trying to figure out what she had done wrong. Guilt began to eat away at her heart, yet she stayed, believing that if she tried harder, everything would return to how it was at the beginning. She stopped doing the things she loved, painting, reading, meeting friends, going out alone. Everything gradually disappeared. She lived for him, to please him, to maintain the appearance of a perfect relationship. But the more she gave, the more distant he seemed. The feeling of inadequacy consumed her. Every compliment was followed by a disguised criticism. Every act of affection came with silent expectations. And she, always trying to be the perfect partner, never felt whole. The love she thought she had found didn't bring security. It brought an invisible prison. Every decision she made was measured, every word considered, every smile analyzed. She didn't realize that with every attempt to please him, she lost pieces of what made her unique. Even the dreams that once fueled her soul began to disappear. She thought about traveling, studying something new, moving to another city, but quickly canceled any plan that might contradict his opinion. There were nights when she cried silently, trying to understand where she had gone wrong. But the truth was, it had never been her fault. He had always tried to mold her into the image he wanted, without ever caring who she truly was. And still, she remained out of fear, hope, and love, believing that if she was enough, he would finally see her, finally love her for who she truly was. And then slowly she began to notice small cracks in her own identity. The reflection in the mirror no longer showed the woman who had fallen in love with life. It showed someone exhausted, dimmed, someone who smiled because she had to, not because she felt it. She began to see just how much she had lost. Friends, freedom, confidence, dreams, pieces of her own essence. The weight of it all was becoming unbearable. Yet even at this point, her self-love was still asleep. She felt pain, sadness, emptiness. But she still believed that if she kept trying, she could regain what she thought she had lost. She didn't know that to find herself again, she first had to recognize the truth. The problem had never been her, but the love that tried to trap her in a mold that would never be enough. The night became her confidant, crying alone, gazing at the stars, reflecting on everything she had become. This began to open cracks in the invisible prison he had built around her life. She started to notice that what she was missing most wasn't his love, but her own love for herself. She reached the point where she could no longer recognize her own life. The reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, someone she had become only to fit someone else's vision of her. Every forced laugh, every rehearsed word, every abandoned dream was a quiet testament to what she had lost. And yet, in the silence, a flicker of something long forgotten began to emerge. Clarity. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her pain. She let the tears flow without shame, let the frustration and anger rise and spill, and finally breathed deeply, as if the very act of inhaling could reclaim the space within her that had been suffocated. Each breath was a small rebellion, each tear a step toward freedom. The memories that once haunted her now became teachers. She remembered the countless nights she stayed silent to avoid conflict, the times she silenced her laughter so it would not irritate him, the dreams she postponed because his desires came first. The pain of remembering was sharp, but beneath it was a dawning awareness. Her worth had never depended on his approval. That realization was like sunlight piercing through a dense, suffocating fog, bright, awakening, liberating. She began to recognize patterns she had ignored for too long. The subtle manipulations, the slow erosion of her confidence, the relentless demand to conform. And she understood something essential. Survival meant reclaiming her identity, piece by piece. She started asserting herself in small ways, practicing a gentle yet firm no, recognizing that boundaries were not selfish, but necessary. Each choice she made to honor herself became a building block of strength, a declaration that her life was hers alone. Her healing process was neither linear nor simple. Some days the old doubts resurfaced like shadows, whispering that she was not enough, that she had failed somehow. But now she had a different voice to answer them, firm and unwavering. I survived the impossible. I am enough. I am here. I am mine. With each repetition, the voice grew stronger until it became a shield against the lingering echoes of his control. As she reclaimed herself, she began to rediscover the joy she had buried. Painting returned, not as an obligation but as a celebration of her vision. Writing became a sacred ritual, a channel to release the pain and shape her newfound clarity. She traveled to places she had dreamed of, immersing herself in experiences that reminded her of the beauty in the world and in herself. Every smile, every laugh, every sunset she witnessed became proof that she was alive in her own right, no longer living in someone else's shadow. The process of self-rediscovery also taught her compassion, not just for herself, but for others. She began to understand the complexity of human behavior, why people manipulate, why love is sometimes twisted. And yet she held firm to the truth. Manipulation and control were never love. They were signs, warnings, invitations to turn inward and claim her own power. She forgave herself for not seeing it sooner, for staying too long, but the forgiveness was gentle, not self-punishment. She acknowledged her past as part of her journey and used it as fuel to move forward. In this renewed state, she began to teach herself how to love authentically. She learned that love does not demand loss. It does not suffocate or erase. Love illuminates, nurtures, and grows. Each interaction with the world became a practice in this kind of love, a reflection of the care she had cultivated for herself. She no longer sought validation from others because she had become her own sanctuary. Her story became a beacon. She shared her experiences not out of bitterness, but as a guide for anyone still trapped in invisible prisons. Each word she spoke, each message she shared carried the weight of survival and the light of hope. She invited others to reflect. If you feel yourself being erased for the sake of someone else, it's time to step back and reclaim your life. You are not the problem. Your freedom is your right. If you've ever felt lost in a relationship, subscribe to the channel. Share your experience in the comments below. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Every reflection, every shared message is a lifeline, a reminder that healing is possible and no one has to walk this path alone. Her awakening deepened with each day. She explored passions that had been dormant for years, learning, creating, engaging with life fully. She surrounded herself with people who celebrated her, encouraged her, and inspired her. She realized that the connections we choose, the company we keep, are as vital to our well-being as self-love itself. Each step forward, no matter how small, became a triumph over the years she had lived under someone else's expectations. And yet, even as she celebrated progress, she confronted the shadows within herself. The fear, the insecurity, the lingering doubt, these were not enemies, but reminders of what she had endured and overcome. She faced them with courage, naming them, acknowledging them, and letting them pass without allowing them to define her. Every confrontation with her own vulnerability became an act of empowerment, each one a brick in the fortress of her restored self. She learned to forgive, not him, but herself. Forgive herself for the years she had allowed someone else to dictate her life. Forgive herself for doubting her instincts, for silencing her voice, for giving pieces of her soul away. And in that forgiveness, she discovered freedom. She realized that forgiveness is not weakness. It is the strongest act of self-love. As time passed, she embraced her newfound autonomy. She understood that love does not demand loss, that true love uplifts rather than confines, that no relationship should cost her identity. Each past tear, every sleepless night, every painful goodbye had led her here to a place of clarity, strength, and radiant self-respect. She smiled, fully and unapologetically, not because anyone told her to, but because she chose to honor herself, to embrace her authenticity, and to step into a future defined by her own terms. If someone asks you to lose yourself to be with them, it's not love. It's a prison. Love yourself first. Rebuild your life and allow yourself to shine fully. True love never extinguishes, it illuminates. Every tear, every hard decision, every moment of courage brings you closer to your strongest, most authentic self. Never lose yourself for someone who cannot truly see you. Your essence is your power, and your freedom is your right.